Hello, and welcome to the first ever virtual production of Costume Drama. In its 9th year, Costume Drama has become a matter of heart for so many, including local designers, models, hair and makeup artists, photographers, and of course, Asheville Community Theatre, for whom the production has raised tens of thousands of dollars to support the plays, musicals, classes, and outreach that connects our community through theater and arts. And during this challenging and uncertain time, with so many doors closed and opportunities put on hold, creativity has brought abundant joy and hope to communities throughout the world. That's how we knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that the show had to go on. Costume Drama is a competition centered around the creation of fashion from unconventional material. In a typical production, 4 categories of material are selected, and the designers in each category compete before a panel of judges to win the best look in their category, and ultimately, the show. This year, 4 categories were chosen: the disco ball, the halftime show, tech support, and recycling bin. You will certainly see the influences of these categories in the pieces shown tonight. But once COVID restrictions forced everyone to stay home and stay safe, designers were empowered to create fashion with whatever unconventional materials they could safely access. And so, rather than winning a material category, this year designers are competing based on how they used their unconventional materials. This year's judging criteria will be Best Concept or Story, the inspiration behind the piece and how the piece conveys that story. Best Unexpected Material, Best Creativity, Best Composition, Garment, Accessories, and Styling. The judges have pre-screened a special premiere of the show and have selected winners that will be revealed for the first time to the designers and to you, the audience, at the same time during tonight's broadcast. Our judges for this year's production will be Anne Berlin, Guadalupe Chavarria, Jamie Daniels, and Rick Ramsey. We'd also like to thank our very special sponsors for this production: Van Winkle Law Firm, Bray Creech and Dustin Rhodes, and Robertson Stevens Attorneys at Law. Tonight's show would not have been possible without the support, knowledge, and care of everyone at B-Clip Productions. We are grateful for their partnership so that the tradition of costume drama could continue this year. With that, we'd like to invite you to sit back, relax, and escape, if only just for a moment, into a wondrous world where a wiffle ball can be a flower, a skirt can be a forest, and vestiges of an old keyboard are this season's finest accessories. Ladies and gentlemen, Costume Drama 2020.
I actually started with a whole different design that I ripped up and moved on from, and I gave myself a challenge of only using materials that I had in the house. I love working with unconventional materials, and I love working with recycled materials. I almost always do something out of paper, or I used magazines, old calendars, like an old car seat cover I found that I ripped up that makes the base of the skirt. After it was all done, I just started playing with the spray paint. So happy I discovered that I could make kind of like a tie-dye effect, and I was like rubbing it with my glove and doing all kinds of techniques over the dress. We called it her clamshell back here. I thought that was really fun. It was really very difficult to construct and make it stay. So once it actually worked and it was on her and everything was good, I was very excited about that. So as I was doing it, I was feeling transported to kind of like a magical place, and just had this really flowy, kind of comfortable, happy vibe, and I really needed that right now, like in the world and in my life, is just a sense of hope and renewal. That was really my inspiration, as something that was uplifting, not just for me, but for people who would look at it.
So Camille and I work together at a mental health facility, and we are considered essential care workers. So we had to mask up and still feed people. So this piece is made from recycled materials out of a commercial kitchen that she and I work in. I get teased all the time. Oh, Rose, can you make a dress out of this? I'm like, sure. Oh, I got all these coffee filters. Can you make a dress out of this? Yeah, sure I can. So this year I put a big old sign up that said, hey, if you think I can make something with it, put it in the bag. I had this huge industrial garbage bag that all my coworkers just kept shoving stuff into. And I took it home and just dumped it out in my living room, and that's where I started creating. Truly, the inspiration came from Camille. She loves fun, sweet-looking 80s kind of bright-colored stuff, and that's kind of where I started. Every year, she puts on crazy costumes and walks in heels and drags bizarre trains behind her. And she has always done it with patience, poise, elegance, kindness. And for that, this piece I dedicate it to her. And she totally looks like she just owns that piece.
When I heard that the theme this year was just going to be unusual materials, I was in my kitchen and I looked around to see what I had, and there were plenty of empty soda cans for recycling. So that became my inspiration. What could I make a dress out of that would use soda cans? So these are the soda can pieces. And I cut hundreds of these and individually sewed them on by hand to the screening that's underneath the whole garment. So it's leftover screen from our porch. And so these pieces that you'll see on the dress are all from that. Then the dress itself is duct tape. The first time I came to see Costume Drawn, I was blown away. I couldn't believe what people were making things out of, that these are handmade pieces and that there's so much creativity put in them. And so I think it's a really important thing when you're an artist to try to step out of your box sometimes. And my box is making fabric and then making something out of it. And so here, I hardly ever get to use fabric, and it is making me think in different ways. And so I think it still pushes the creativity and the bounds of the talents of the people that are here. And so I was really pleased to hear it was going to happen this year.
Back when there were still material categories, I was selected to be into the halftime show, and I wanted to use equestrian sport things, but that's still a pretty broad category, so I narrowed it down to Western stuff. I got my first horse when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I just wanted to start making my own things, and I also wanted to start making outfits that had some practicality. So everything involved in that costume is stuff I already had. There's horse blankets, feed bags, a rein, just all sorts of horse tack, ribbons, horse hair. It's kind of a saloon girl looking outfit. So it has the train, which is made from a horse blanket. After that, it has a couple little puffs. One of them is a feed bag, one of them is the horse equivalent of a windbreaker. And then the bodice is, once again, some more of that like windbreakery material and feed bag. Then the headband, I attached a piece of like a rein to, and then I took 2 ribbons and put them together for that little rosette and used actual horse hair, which I put wire in to kind of give it that shape. Thank you, Mama, for sending me your ribbons and all the horse supplies, and Finn for being an excellent model again.
So my piece, I'm an art student. I go to SCAD, I study fashion design. So this past quarter, being online was kind of like in my own headspace. And one of the things I like to do in my own headspace is play video games. And I really love vintage 80s video games, so that's what my piece was inspired by. You can see the Pac-Man symbol on the back, you can see the arrows from Dance Dance Revolution down the legs. My dad used to work in technology, so we have like tons and tons of computer pieces everywhere. So I found some cables, some very thick and heavy cables, and I felt really bad putting them on the costume piece because they're so heavy. But I cut them down to the pant size, added some like spacing in them, and then added those wires and cables down the legs, and used a lot of glue, so they're so heavy. Having a good team around you has been the one thing that like I've learned doing this, because we've all been isolated, we've all been shut down. I was still at school when everything happened, so I was at school by myself. So going through a design process and like finding myself as a designer through pieces like this, but then being able to come here and put it on Nora backstage and then have everybody suggest, oh, what if you tie your hair this way? Well, what if you move this so that this is like shown and you don't want to hide this? And being able to recognize that you've been looking at it too long and someone else having a better idea and a better opinion about it is a good thing.
Costume drama has always been one of my favorite shows. It was actually the first show that I really did in Asheville as a designer. This year in particular, what I've done has been an extremely collaborative process. My model is not only an amazing, talented, and beautiful woman, but she has also been my partner in creating and conceptualizing this piece. We live in an age right now where technology is so rapidly changing, and it's interesting that the past gets forgotten so quickly. And so I guess the inspiration for this really came from the idea of an outmoded computer system still trying to find her place in a more modern society. I wanted to use as many unconventional materials as possible this year. The materials themselves are actually mostly CDs. So the plastic flowers that you see on it are actually the film covering on top of flexible CD cases. The black fabric underneath is actually each individual CD case that I sewed together to make a fabric and then cut a pattern out of. Instead of using traditional boning, I used zip ties. The only thing that was mostly store-bought would have been the lights. I wanted her to look almost alien, ethereal, something that you wanted to approach but were also somewhat scared of. And I think that that kind of helped influence the color scheme of the Aurora Borealis effect that I wanted to do with the lights.
The idea was, we're in quarantine, don't go shopping. Well, for other designers that might have been a problem, but I have a studio filled with fabulous things. And so it was quite easy for me to pull some things together. Somebody had donated these football shoulder pads, and I thought, that is really wanting to be something. But what you're looking at is shoulder pads, kids' hockey shin pads that are now on her arms. Before we went into quarantine, I had already gone to a metal recycling place here in town, bit more metal and iron. And what you're seeing, I call it metal fur, but what you're seeing on the shoulder pads are actually shavings from a mechanic shop that was making bolts, and these are the metal shavings that curled and fell off as their cast-offs. I'm missing dressing up. I'm missing having parties to go to. Don't have any events even planned in the future. So I thought, she is the personification of me. She's a badass who's tough and is doing quarantine well. I'm okay. And I want to look fabulous. So that is how she came to be. You know, let's not forget, this is a community theater. It's important that we support them. And I love ACT, I love the people. And so it's an important part of our community. Let's not forget that we will be back in the seats watching theater again one day.
With this costume in particular, it was quite interesting. Leslie gave me a call at the beginning of March and said, "Hey Lisa, do you want to do costume drama?" And I said, "I don't know, it's a lot of work." And
so finally, this year she agreed to apply with me for us to, she's head designer and I'm her creative partner, so, and her model, obviously.
When we first started, we committed to 1 day a week to get together and work on a lot of the components of the costume. So I did these original drawings, and I really like the idea of using recyclable materials. That whole frontispiece, the gold, that's made out of milk jugs that I've cut out, flattened. I used milk jugs for the base of the headpiece as well. In the bridge of the nose, I kept the handle in the milk carton, and that enabled me to use the dry ice. And getting it all to work together, and it was just so exciting. But the first time I saw the dry ice come out of the nostrils was cool, and when I finally got the tail done and it moved with Leslie the way I wanted it to.
We had a great time occupying ourselves during this quarantine and COVID, cutting thousands of cans and milk jugs and having a great time making Adina. This will be a lifelong memory for Lisa and I.
I think when I decided I wasn't just going to make a pretty dress, that I wanted it to be meaningful, even though light was supposed to be the main part of the main element. It's like, let's bring more light into our life and color. The necklace I made kind of looks like bullets, shells, and the earrings are remind me of tears, hardened tears. And a friend of mine sent me a box of clothes, and I hated to do it, but I cut up a silk skirt, and I started making flowers because I kept thinking, after George Floyd was killed, it was like everything changed. And I was lucky to have already asked Gigi to be my model several months ago. She's modeled for me 2 times before. So I felt blessed that she could be part of my statement. We've seen many positive things come out of the virus and the Black Lives Matter movement, but it's just flowering. And with that, it's just my expression of the sorrow I felt in this whole ordeal.
Inspiration comes from shadow puppetry. The light comes from behind and it illuminates the cloth, and then the puppets are moved across the cloth to create shadows which tell a story.
In the early days, we were meeting outside at Beaver Lake, and we got the inspiration for the skirt because of the trees that we were seeing at Beaver Lake and the kind of the atmosphere of the lake.
I think one of the activism parts of it happened as we were creating the shadow images of the trees. We began to create within itself things that were very meaningful to us. What's the current events right now, things that we're passionate about, and we put those things into the dress.
We realized that the dress that we're making it's all light and shadow and black and white, and we're in this kind of intensive moment. It's a cry for change. So the quote came from Nina Simone: "An artist's duty, as far as I am concerned, is to reflect the times. I think that is true of painters, sculptors, poets, and musicians." And it spoke to us very much about we're making this beautiful thing, but it can also say something.
You know, I am so inspired working with these girls. That is a win for me.
We just try everything. We go with whatever's in our imagination. We totally do. And that's what we like about each other as well.
this year I decided to use electronics because I've never used those before, but my concept is how the human race has become so dependent on technology and electronics, and we're giving up so much of our abilities for the ease and the convenience of technology. We're giving up our brain capacities and letting computers do our thinking for us, and we're transforming into this hybrid species, and how far are we willing to go? How much of ourselves are we willing to give up? So I used a lot of circuit boards from computers and TVs and various things, lots of wires and cords, and probably about 9 keyboards worth of keys into my design, and a hairdryer and an Xbox controller and some speakers. And normally I like to disguise my materials so that they don't look like the materials I'm using, but they change the categories, so I felt I had to switch and more or less enhance the materials I was using, which was a challenge in itself for me, because I felt, okay, I need to find a balance. I don't want her to look like a robot, but I need to show that there's electronic components here. So I hope I found the balance. I don't know.
So mostly I worked with what I could get. I thrifted everything I could. The only new things I bought were golf tees and ping pong balls, and I had the pearls from a past project. Seems like there's an emphasis on reusing materials, like recycling, and upcycling is really important to me. Like everything I used in this, I really tried to use things that were broken, things that someone probably wouldn't pick up at the store. So the upper half, the upper piece, is made out of a catcher's chest guard, catcher's mitts, ping pong balls, volleyballs, basketballs, footballs, shuttlecock tails, and the heads to make the flowers. But I wanted something really regal, and so I thought about the ruffled collars that a lot of people in the English monarchy wore, so I almost recreated that shape with the golf tees and the pearls. The kilt is all a equipment storage bag that's been deconstructed and covered completely in athletic tape. The idea of making something for someone else was really exciting, because I do cosplay, I do costuming for myself, but I've never really taken on a costume for somebody else, and I would love to do this again. I loved every person that I have come across. Everyone's been so helpful and supportive and communicative, and it's just made the process so easy.
Congratulations and thank you to all of our designers, models, and everyone who supported and inspired them. And now, the winners of Costume Drama 2020. For the category of Best Concept or Story, Lisa B. Hoffman. For the category of Best Unexpected Material, Ray Foley. For the category of Best Creativity, Eleanor Squires. For the category of Best Composition, Hiba Mustafa. And the Best in Show winner of Costume Drama 2020 is Ray Foley. Congratulations again to all of our contestants, and thank you for your support of Asheville Community Theatre. Thank you again, and good night.